The town of Willow Ridge hadn't seen rain like this in decades. It wasn't a storm that made headlines, and yet something about it felt unnatural. The sky had darkened far earlier than usual, cloaking the town in a gray, oppressive gloom. The rain came down in thick, whispering sheets that seemed to muffle every sound except the steady tapping against windows and rooftops. Lena Harper drove slowly through the winding streets, her windshield wipers fighting against the downpour. She had inherited her aunt's house near the edge of town and decided to spend a weekend there, cleaning up the place before she put it on the market. The house was old, built in the early 1900s, and tucked deep in a wooded area where few people ever ventured. Her phone buzzed with a message from her friend, Jason. "You sure you want to stay out there alone in this weather? Sounds like horror movie material." She smiled faintly and texted back, "It's just rain. I'll be fine. I've got wine, candles, and enough junk food to survive a week." The house appeared through the trees, its silhouette a black shadow against the dusky sky. Lena parked her car and jogged to the porch, soaked by the time she reached the door. The key turned with a creak, and the door opened with a long groan that echoed through the empty hall. Inside, the air smelled musty and old, like dust and forgotten time. She lit a few candles, the flickering flames casting long shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Rain drummed steadily against the roof, growing louder as night settled in. By midnight, the storm was in full swing. Thunder cracked distantly, and lightning briefly illuminated the hallway beyond the living room. Lena, curled up on the couch with a blanket and a glass of wine, felt an odd chill despite the warmth of the fire. The first strange sound came at 12:17 a.m. A soft knock on the front door. Not loud, not urgent, just slow, deliberate. She froze, the glass halfway to her lips. The knock came again. 3 slow taps. Then silence. She set the glass down and stood, her heart beating faster than she liked. Through the peephole, she saw nothing, just the shimmering rain. She opened the door crack and peered out. No one. But there were wet footprints on the wooden porch, bare feet, no shoes, leading directly to her door. Lena shut and locked the door quickly, checking all the windows, all the other doors. Everything was locked tight. She blamed the wine and her imagination. But that night, she didn't sleep. By the next day, the storm had intensified. Trees bent under the force of the wind. Power went out just after noon. With no electricity and no cell service, Lena was isolated. She tried not to panic, lighting candles and wrapping herself in a heavier blanket. As the daylight faded, she felt something shift in the air, an invisible pressure that made her ears ring slightly. At 6:43 p.m., she heard footsteps upstairs. Not the creak of the old house. Footsteps. Heavy. Unhurried. She held her breath. Again creak. Thud. Another step. She grabbed the flashlight from her bag and made her way up the stairs slowly, heart pounding. The hallway upstairs was dark, only her beam of light illuminating the way. She checked each room, one by one. All empty. But in the guest bedroom, the floor was wet. Puddles of muddy water trailed across the wooden boards, leading to the closet. Lena hesitated, then yanked the door open. Nothing. She backed out of the room, not taking her eyes off the closet. When she turned, she nearly screamed. Her reflection in the hallway mirror had changed. Her face was the same, but the eyes, they were pitch black. Completely void. Behind her, in the reflection, stood a shadowy figure. But when she spun around, no one was there. That night, she dreamed of rain. But in the dream, the rain was alive, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. And someone stood in the trees watching her. Always watching. On the third day, she discovered the diary. It was hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. Old, leather-bound, the pages brittle with age. It belonged to her aunt, though Lena had never known her well. The entries started out mundane, but as she read, the tone changed. The rain never stops. I thought I was just losing track of time, but it's been weeks. I hear them at night. They knock. They whisper. The ones who drowned. I shouldn't have tried to live here alone. The last entry was smeared with water damage, but she made out the words, "If you hear them knock, don't answer. If you see them, don't run. They hate the running. They drowned running." Lena closed the diary, her hands trembling. That night, the knocking returned. 3 soft knocks. But this time, it came from inside the house. She barely slept, every creak of the wood keeping her wide-eyed under the blanket. Around 3 a.m., she heard a voice. Whispered, barely audible. "Let us in." It came from the walls. From the drains. From everywhere and nowhere. She ran out of the bedroom, nearly slipping on the wet floor, because the rain had somehow seeped inside. The hallway was soaked. Trails of water led down the stairs. When she reached the living room, she froze. The front door stood open, swaying in the wind. Rain gushed inside. But more than that, there were figures standing just outside. Not moving, just staring. Pale faces. Eyes missing. Clothes hanging from waterlogged limbs. And smiles. Wide, unnatural smiles. Lena backed away, breath shallow. Then she noticed something. Her reflection in the mirror beside the door had changed again. It wasn't her. It looked like her, but the skin was bloated, pale, covered in algae and moss. The eyes were hollow. Black water poured from the mouth. She screamed and smashed the mirror. The figures at the door vanished. By morning, she was packing to leave. But when she tried to start her car, it didn't respond. Not a sound. The battery had been ripped out. Not drained. Ripped. In the trunk, she found footprints again. This time, they led into the woods behind the house. She knew she shouldn't follow. But the whispers called her name. Lena, Lena, Lena. She wandered into the woods, soaked to the bone, flashlight flickering. The forest was flooded, ankle-deep in cold, black water. Strange symbols were carved into the trees. And the further she walked, the quieter the world became. No birds. No wind. Just rain. Then she saw it. A stone well, ancient and moss-covered, in the center of a clearing. Rain poured down into it, as if the sky itself was feeding something below. She heard the voice again. Behind her. "Do you want to know the truth?" She turned. A woman stood there, soaked, translucent. Her aunt. "You were never meant to come here. It never lets us leave. We live in the rain now. And soon so will you." Lena ran. She doesn't remember how she made it back to the house, only that when she reached the porch, she was coughing up water. Water that didn't come from her lungs. It came from somewhere deeper. That night, she tried to burn the diary. It wouldn't catch. The rain had soaked it too well. By the 5th day, Lena was gone. No one knows what happened. The house stands abandoned again. Locals say you can hear knocking if you pass by during a storm. 3 soft knocks. Always followed by a whisper. "Let us in." And if you listen too long, if you answer the door, you'll never leave the rain behind.